Give me a second.
Good evening, everyone. We are getting ready to begin. We're going to call this Board of Education meeting to order. Just so you know, all those out there that don't know, I'm the president of the board. I'm Chris James. We've got the vice president down here, Mr. Jeff Cavano. Other board members are Mr. Steve Switchcable, Mr. Joel Justice, and Mrs. Jill Parker. And we are going to start. So let's take the roll.
Mr. James?
Here.
Mr. Cavano?
Here.
Mr. Augustus?
Here.
Mrs. Parker? Here. Mr. Switchfield?
Here.
Okay, we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. Flag in the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are to our meeting organization. At this time, Dr. Cronin, our superintendent, will show a PowerPoint presentation and lead the discussion regarding facilities. Thank you, Mr. James.
Again, I'm Dr. John Cronin, Superintendent of Northeastern Local Schools, and I want to welcome everyone again to the meeting. And kind of probably about our fourth facilities meeting, probably our second really big one where we've done a lot of advertising and trying to make sure we're getting as many people here as we can to get your input. This is truly about what the community wants, and I don't know how many times I've heard and had emails sent to me and different things that you already know what you're going to do. Boy, if I did, I wouldn't be here tonight. We wouldn't need to do this because we really don't. We need your input, and we really want to find a plan that's going to work for the community. At our last meeting, we had about between 200 and 250 people in Rolling Hills. I know I see a lot of the same faces, and that's great. We went from 6 plans down to 2. And those are the 2 that we really want to focus in on tonight. We're going to try and add some more details about option 2. And option 2, for those of you who don't know, is basically 2 pre-K-12 buildings. One around the Northridge side of the district, one around the South Vienna side of the district. So we're going to try and focus in on that plan, as well as option 5, which is 2 pre-K-8s. One on the Northridge side, one in South Vienna area, and then one centrally consolidated high school. Having a little trouble with the centrally right now because I haven't been able to find some land. We'll address that a little bit later in the program, but we will share some things with that, and our goal tonight is to give you more information as neutrally as we possibly can. Again, not trying to convince you on one plan or the other. That's going to be kind of where you're at. But at the end of the day, hopefully, we can get behind a plan because we have to be on the ballot and we have to pass dollars to be able to make whatever that plan is work. Which means some people will have to say, you know what, I didn't really get exactly the plan I wanted, but I know that facilities are important to our district and that we need to do something. So that's a key piece of anything that we do. But we want to share a lot of information tonight. At the last meeting, I did all the talking, or a great deal of it. We broke into some collaboration groups. You know what, as a good administrator, I delegate. So tonight, my principals are going to do a lot of the talking and share their perspectives about what they see as pros and cons and information about those 2 plans so that you're not listening to me now. That doesn't mean you're not going to hear from me because I'll probably chime in because it's just what I do. I can't help that sometimes. But we're going to start off with our high schools. And we have Mrs. Allie Thurman and Mr. John Hill.
Good evening. So a couple items, John Hill and I are going to split this up. I'm going to start off talking about some academic opportunities that we'll see the differences between a pre-K-12 building and a consolidated high school. We'll also talk about facilities, comparison of those facilities and the sizes, the cost, the difference in cost, and then also we'll talk about some athletic options. So I'll start off with some academic opportunities that we would see. Currently, in a pre-K-12 setting, we probably see not a whole lot different setup than we currently already have. The big differences we see between the two high schools right now are foreign language. At Kenton Ridge, they offer French and Spanish. At Northeastern right now, we offer Spanish only. At Northeastern as well, we're able to offer FFA. We also offer at both schools College Credit Plus courses and electives, but KR at this point right now has more opportunities than we do on Northeastern side. If we look at a consolidated building, one high school, we could look at English electives. So we have our general English. We have 9, 10, 11, 12. We could look at offering even more electives than we do. That could be something, we could offer poetry. We could offer basically anything you can imagine with English electives that a student might be interested in. We could offer more science electives, math electives, foreign language. Possibly both schools would have the opportunity to have foreign language in both, and possibly additional third courses, career tech, which would be considered shop classes, so some type of career tech classes. So when we're looking at College Credit Plus offerings at the high school level, our current offerings at Kenton Ridge, we have English. We have multiple different options for English. We have math, Spanish, French, and keyboarding. So students can earn college credit in any of those courses currently at Kenton Ridge. At Northeastern right now, we have English and geology, and we also offer AP government, which is a change, which is a difference. If we would consolidate in a building, we believe we would offer College Credit Plus English, plus more elective options in English. So if you would look at a course syllabus for a college, there's multiple levels of English, and you could really tie down to, even you could go to like errors in English. So we could offer those. We can offer more math, College Credit Plus courses, including college algebra, pre-calc, calc 2, and a stats class. We could offer science, College Credit Plus courses, look at biology, and possibly more electives, along with our current geology course. Social studies courses, foreign language again, offer Spanish and French, and possible elective. We would offer music courses. We could offer music. We're able to do that now. We're not just consistently able to fill a class to call it a section. And then career tech and shop classes. So at this time, Mr. Hill, principal at Kenton Ridge, will talk about some academic costs.
Okay, with the the academic costs, with the 2 pre-K-12 buildings, as well as the one consolidated building with one high school, the 2 pre-K-12 buildings we're going to be running those more or less exactly like we're doing right now. So the savings for those will not be noticeable. Okay, consolidated building potential savings are approximately 12 teachers that we can save in the various areas, and we broke down the cost of those at approximately $50,000 a year with salary and benefits to total of $600,000 a year savings. We're going to start using some teachers possibly across the high schools right now, and that creates problems because of the traffic. That creates problems. We lose classes because of that. If we add potential programs, so some of the programs that Mrs. Thurman was talking to you about, we can add some of those potential programs, and those areas we're talking about possibly adding 4 teachers. So we add at $50,000 a year, we add about $200,000 back to the $600,000 that was going to be saved. So the approximate savings or less would be for the consolidated area would be about $400,000 a year. As far as athletics go, right now both buildings have the same athletics. That would stay basically the same. One thing from year to year that changes is whether we can offer different freshman teams, as well as junior varsity teams. There are some of our sports that we don't have enough participation to field JV teams or freshman teams, but whenever we do, we give students the opportunity. So in pre-K-12 buildings, we're going to keep things the same, and if we get the interest in those areas, we can add JV programs and freshman programs. And we have that in there right now, figured in there right now. Consolidated building with one high school. We would, more than likely, with the number of kids participating, we're going to be able to field a lot of freshman teams. Almost all JV teams and all varsity teams in all the sports we currently have. Right now, we both work with freshman basketball, boys basketball teams. With a consolidated high school, we possibly could add freshman teams in girls basketball, volleyball, different areas like those to get more students involved in participating in athletics. Based on enrollment projections from this year, figures from the Ohio High School Athletic Association, most of our sports would be Division I, except for football. Football more than likely would be Division II. Most sports have 4 divisions, except football. Soccer's got 3. Football's got 7. So we would more than likely be Division II in football. Everything else would be Division I.
And we currently are
Division II at Kenton Ridge in most things, in Division III at Northeastern in most sports. So that's kind of where we are. Anticipated league affiliation would be the Central Buckeye Conference due to size. Athletic costs, the potential high school savings. If we continue as 2 pre-K-12 buildings, nothing's going to change very much. Hopefully be able to offer freshman and JV programs everywhere, but we possibly may not. So we're keeping everything pretty much the same there. At a consolidated building, with one high school, potential high school savings is approximately about 17 coaches. And we're averaging about $2,000 a year. Those would be all assistant coaches. Would be around $34,000 savings. Transportation savings would be $18,000, almost $19,000. Cost of coaches to cover additional programming. So anything additional, such as those extra freshman teams that we would have. Additional coaches in those areas, about 13 at $2,000 a year would be about $26,000. So the approximate cost savings with a consolidated building would be almost $27,000. These are all approximate costs. None of these are anything set in stone. These are all approximate costs. Now here are some differences in the LFIs. And the LFIs are those locally funded initiatives. Those are things as a community we have to pay for. We cannot use the bond issue. It's extra above and beyond the bond issue in order to pay for these facilities.
Actually, it's extra above and beyond the cost of what we would be reimbursed from the Ohio School Facilities Commission. It's all part of the bond issue. But the Ohio School Facilities Commission currently would fund us at approximately 40% of the educational facilities. So those outside stadiums don't figure into that cost. We would have to fund those ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the athletic facilities in 2 K through 12 buildings. The northeastern site, that site will be located near South Vienna, and because of that, all the facilities will need to be moved over to that area. So the approximate cost of doing that, and the athletic directors looked through various things with this, was approximately $6,075,000. That's at a site at South Vienna. So everything needs to be moved. What they would do at Kenton Ridge, it cost about $3,300,000 to update the current facilities they have there. So that would be the difference. And the current facilities, because the location of where that pre-K-12 building would be very similar area as to where Kenton Ridge is now. A consolidated building, that's one high school. The athletic facility would be about $7.9 million to upgrade those facilities.
I'm going to jump in just very quickly. On the LFIs, especially for athletics, there are choices. At the last meeting, I shared a few more slides about that. If you were not at a previous meeting, everything that we have is on our website. Just go to the website, hit the word facilities, and you can see any document that we have put out there in any of our meetings. So there's a PowerPoint that shows a lot of those different costs. So there's choices of whether or not there's a turf field or not. Obviously, turf costs more than natural grass. There's some maintenance savings. But, again, there are different costs with each one of those. And those are some things that we're looking at doing and trying to find out from the community as we talk about a scientific survey, which I will also discuss a little bit more later on. But there's some ranges here for those different facilities, but it would be inclusive of all of our current athletic facilities. Okay, tennis courts, track, baseball, softball, so on. Okay?
Now the next is the facility size comparison of the different facilities, what the size comparison is. If we have 2 pre-K through 12 buildings, the approximate square footage is based on enrollment. And that's based on from the states, what we get in terms of how much square feet we get per student. With the pre-K-12 building on the Kenton Ridge side, the approximate square footage would be 247,854 square feet. On the northeastern side, in the South Vienna area, the approximate square footage would be 172,857. The difference is 74,997, about 75,000 square feet difference in the two facilities. Now that's about, if I'm not right, the size of South Vienna. This facility right here is about 75,000 square feet. So that's the difference.
When you came in, there was a handout that looked like this. If you didn't get that when we had enough to go around. It has option 2 and option 5, and it has those square footages in there. Okay, so that you can see them. The first, I think, 3 pages are option 2. The next 3 pages are option 5. So that you can kind of see what the square footages are for all of our facilities. If you go about halfway down, underneath the middle of the page, or the last color line right in the middle of the page, it says total square footage, or existing square footage, excuse me. So you can see those, and then obviously what would be projected in those 2 plans. So if you didn't get one of those, there are hopefully a few more out there, but it will be posted on the website as well.
Yes, that's where we're getting all these numbers from those areas. Numbers we're getting as far as cost savings or estimates, based on things the athletic directors put together. Us, as high school principals, we put some information together for them as well.
The other piece that's important to know, the Ohio School Facilities Commission bases everything off of the number of students you have, and you get so many square feet per student. And it varies a little bit based on the age of the student. A high school student, they think, needs a little more square footage than an elementary student, and the things that they do. So science lab, you get a few more square feet because of being a high school student and the need there. So there's a formula that's all plugged in, and again, we need to follow that formula, especially if we want those 40% matching dollars.
Now, one thing to remember, if you're looking on the left at the pre-K-12 building, that's all 3 buildings together. That's the elementary, middle school, and high school all together, that's square footage. Because when we go over to the right side for a consolidated building, for one high school, that's 166,000 square feet. That's where that number came from, that paper that Dr. Kronauer talked to you about. The pre-K-8 building on the Kenton Ridge side would be 161,087 square feet. That would be like the elementary and middle school together. On the northeastern side, the pre-K-8 building would be 104,561 or 516 square feet. And the difference just between those two, the pre-K-8 buildings, is 56,571 feet. So Allie's going to talk to you now about facility LFIs.
So if we're looking again at the local funded initiatives for LFIs that we could consider what direction we would go is looking at auditoriums. So we would look at an auditorium, would we most likely put auditoriums on both sides of the district, the size of those auditoriums, would we want to increase the space, how big would we want to make that auditorium? Then they allot us probably a gymnasium. Would we want a larger gymnasium than what we're allotted? Would we want an extra gymnasium? So some schools that you go into may have 2 gymnasiums. You'll see a lot of new schools have a large gymnasium and then they have a smaller gymnasium. Also an ag shop. They will basically fund us on an ag shop based on our enrollment numbers. So would we want to increase the size of the ag shop that they've given us? Because that's a pretty large population of students that are involved in ag. So would we want to increase the size of the shop? A STEM, if we would offer a potential program of STEM, would we want lab space for STEM? What would that lab space look like? How would we basically analyze that? How much space would we need? We would look at basically safety updates. Do we have office for a school resource officer? There's so many parts of safety that can take place that we can upgrade and make it an even safer building. Look at geothermal, and then basically a Board of Education office, what that would look like. Athletics, which we know must be an LFI, is the stadium. Upgrades and new. Would we want to upgrade? How far do we want to upgrade it? Are we going to upgrade to the best turf out there? Are we going to look at all new, basically, facility projects in the athletics? Do we want everything to be top notch? Do we want to update the tracks to be the best out there? Practice field. Include a band practice field on a separate location? Possibly. Baseball and softball facilities, tennis courts, and again, a weight room. So those would be some facility LFIs that we would potentially need to look at, and we could have conversations about once we get to that point.
Are we saying we want to do every one of those? That's up to you. That's up to the community of how many of those things they would want to do. Do we, the OSFC will give you a common space like what they call a cafeteria, where it serves a dual role. It's a cafeteria during the day. It can be an auditorium at night. Okay, or again, it's a dual purpose facility. If you want a standalone auditorium that's separate from cafeteria, then again, that's something that you have to decide as a community that you want to do an LFI for. There's some of the same kinds of things like for energy efficiency. Geothermal costs a little more. The OSFC will fund you at a certain amount. If you want to go to that type of green energy, you pay for the extra above and beyond what they set in their regulations to go there. It's all a choice. And these are some things, again, that we'll try and put out in the survey to see what people are interested in and again, what those options might possibly be if we're looking at a facility plan. Questions on any of that? Questions at any point? Please raise your hand. We'll be glad to stop at any point. Yes?
Well, this is just from my old understanding. Geothermal, would that be heat and cooling?
Yes.
And how do you fuel it now here in this building?
In this building, we are gas and some electric, I believe. Mostly gas. Yes?
Been any discussion about altering the attendance boundaries to make the two sides of the school district more equal in terms of student enrollment?
In our last presentation, we shared where all of your blue dots on the map to kind of say, it really, we tried to draw one that, kind of really breaks it out. If you really want to make the sides even, if you will, our current boundary line of Route 4 would need to move into Northbridge. So while it may make the numbers even, it makes the geography really out of whack. So we could do a lot of different things, but it could be really, interesting to say, okay, you live by, let's say, Rolling Hills, or even farther in, and that's where the boundary line is. The high school might be 0.5 of a mile away, but your boundary should be coming all the way over to possibly South End. Now, obviously, we already have, a bigger side, so it just makes it even more distorted. Okay? But again, we've tried to look at some of those, haven't really shared all those options, because it just seemed like it really made it a bigger issue. But it's a great question. Okay? Yes?
I think it's a question. I did have a question as far as transportation. Right now, we do have some kids that go to Rolling Hills, and when they get into middle school, they come to South Anna instead of North Street. Now, will we still offer that to those kids? Number one. And the second question is, what about transportation? Where will it be located at?
We're going to talk about transportation in a little bit, so if you can hold on that question, we'll get to transportation. As far as the question about intra-district open enrollment, which I think is what you're asking, okay, haven't made any decisions on that of whether we would say we're going to be hard and fast to boundary lines. You know, right now we've kind of kept that open, and obviously it is a possibility based on the enrollment to grade level, and we can handle it. So again, it could be an open discussion item. I wouldn't want to tell you it's going to be one way or the other without knowing for sure. Okay? All right, we're going to keep going.
So introducing next will be the middle school perspective, which will be Mr. Todd Justice and Mr. Gary Miller.
Good evening. Mr. Justice and I, as we talked a little bit about some different things from the middle school perspective, kind of identified a couple of key areas that we're just going to go over tonight. And some of those areas kind of have to do really with more like space, just kind of general environment within our buildings. Talking a little bit academics as well, some traffic patterns, both South Vienna and Northridge especially, just very difficult sometimes to maneuver with buses and dropping off and picking up, and also just collaboration options that we would have with not only students but staff and various other entities. So I'll let Mr. Justice see this first part.
We didn't really split it up. Two columns. We will talk about both of these things together. So the first thing is space. For those of you who are familiar with us, which is everyone in this room, we use every nook and cranny all the time. We have, ever since I've been here, we continue to do so. So space is one of the big issues that will really affect how middle schools will do business. The first thing that we'll talk about is the thoughtful layout of buildings. What the heck does that mean? We can actually have a conversation on, do we want one grade level together? Do we want to work as grade level pods? Do we want to work as grade level teams? Or do we want to work in more departmental? Do we want to have all the social studies together, all the science together, that type of thing? We can actually have those conversations. We can't have those conversations now because we're using whatever's open. That room's available there. I know it's the same at Northridge here. I've got 2 5th grades down there by 3rd grade. I've got 2 5th grades up here by 6th grade. So we can have those types of things. Appropriate science lab, appropriate spaces. Our course of study, our curriculum dictates that we do certain things with our students, which is all well and good, but we have science teachers who are having to tote water back and forth from drinking fountains and bathrooms because we don't even have running water in some of our rooms. We don't even have running water. We don't have the ability to do some of the things we really need to do. We talked about the Catholic Gym Laboratorium that we talked about. Those large spaces, we've got a couple of them up here. Collaboration spaces, the gym, auditorium, cafeteria, indoor large areas for activities. That provides us flexibility. Right now, if you want to make any decision at our buildings, every decision revolves around the cafeteria and the gym. And I'm not just saying that. Every schedule we make, anytime a group wants to come in, anytime we want to have a speaker or a concert or something like that, or an activity for the kids, or an outside group come in, it's always revolved around that. That would relieve that. Modernizing our libraries. It's desperately needed as well. A PE complex. Boy, that sounds cool. I like how that's said. I have this great picture in my mind. But we are required, and we need to provide. It's not like when I was a kid. It's not go change your clothes and roll out the kickball. Okay, the big thing was dress or not dress. How many people got grades on dress or not dress, and that was your only PE grade? Okay, thank you for raising your hand the rest of your life. Except Woodworth, they hadn't invented PE back then. All right? So there's much, much more to that. Fitness, health, nutrition, all those things. Therapy and sensory rooms. Our students with special needs. It isn't back in the 50s and the 60s where you sent students with significant needs or certain issues off somewhere. Our students are our students are our students. All of our students are here. All of our students are there. We need to be able to provide those facilities and provide those services to the students who need them where they need them. Talking about resource rooms and conference space, I'm going to put that together. Some place to have a meeting. We need to sit down. You know, how many of you have been at a parent conference at Northridge or South Vienna? You hear everybody else's conference too, don't you? Okay. Once again, using every nook and cranny. Adequate office space goes into that. The whole privacy aspect, the whole privacy issue. You know, we will talk about. Well, I'll say that for environment when we talk about that. As far as the office space is concerned, and once again, the indoor large area for activities, giving us flexibility that Denise and I don't have to go into hardcore negotiations on. Can I have an activity? Can I have this arts in the classroom activity at this time or this time? No, can't do that because we're having this PE class or we're doing this here and that. It's just using those facilities and having to make those decisions.
And some of the other things that we talked about is just some general environment. One of the things that we desperately need is some updated electrical. The electrical that we have, and Mr. Justice and I joked about the fact that there's like one electrical, it seems like there's one electrical outlet in every classroom and that's about it. Well, as obviously we're expanding our technology and we're giving our kids more options and programs, we need more electrical outlets and availability and things that basically are going to be able to handle some of the technology that we're trying to bring into schools and things like that. You know, we kind of have a running joke as we get back to school in the fall, and sometimes just in the office, and I know in classrooms, it seems like you have to, it's like a combination code of, if I plug this plug here and this plug here, I won't blow a circuit here. And it's kind of this running thing where we just have to do the right combination right now to try to make sure we're not popping a circuit with electrical things in our building. Air conditioning and consistent heating. If you ever come into the buildings during the fall, feel free to come and visit us in August, and we'll let you sit there for a little while and see what we're talking about. But it makes it hard for kids. It makes it hard for kids when they're concentrating about they're sweating, they're hot, or things like that, and our staff too. And it's just a tough environment when you're getting started. But then as we get into some cooler weather, sometimes we have issues with some of the heat. And it's consistent. It might be ice cold one day and we have to do some adjustments, and then it's a sauna the next, and it's trying to find that balance. So trying to have some consistent environmental conditions would be helpful to our students. Restrooms and plumbing options. Middle of the day, you get out of the restroom and you might be washing your hands in a staff restroom, and all of a sudden the water stops. Well, it's because somebody in the girls' restroom flushed the toilet. So, I mean, it's those kinds of things that, we'd like to be able to kind of update our facilities a little bit to have some things of that nature. Appropriate needs for different athletic programs and things like that, whether it's practice spaces, practice fields, other equipment that we might need, matting, or just other structures that you would have in a gym. So just some of those kinds of things for any program we need that we would have from that standpoint. So Mr. Justice.
True story. You can't use two microwaves at the same time in this building. True story.
And be careful. We do have a fire marshal in the room. Be careful.
That's okay. He's been here. And also, everybody on staff knows where breaker number 22 is, because that's the one we always throw. If you use one microwave and the copier, breaker 22 flies. If you use both microwaves, etc., etc., etc. Also, as far as the environment is concerned, you can come in here in January if you want to, because we are steam heat from 1962. And it is usually 80-some degrees in my office because the boilers sit over my office. So there's no vents. It just radiates down into my office. Or if you're in the first classes in the row, you're going to be nice and warm. Now, if you're back in 6th grade, it's going to be much cooler. So we have a great deal of difficulty with that. As far as that, let's talk about good stuff. Let's talk about when we get these new buildings. No matter what happens, we are going to have more offerings for the students. We are going to be able to provide more. And it just depends which way you go. If we are in the pre-K-12 mode, then we are going to, at the middle school level, we are going to be able to attach ourselves with high school teachers who are able to provide high school classes for credit, advanced middle school classes, and provide those supports to us. If we are pre-K-8, it's also the same way, but we are attaching ourselves and we are supporting the elementary. So it's kind of a win in either direction. We are able to either provide support and get help with whether it be peer tutoring, mentorships between older and younger students, all of those things all those great things that we've been doing here in the Northridge forever. But also, if we are attached to the high school, once again, they talked about how we are able to use high school teachers to provide some help for us. We're able to do problem-based learning. You know, what you hear is called STEM. We're able to do those project-based learning and things like that. We could have a CTC satellite here. We could bring our joint vocational education into the middle schools as well. Also, we can provide different things like graphic design classes, that's coding classes, all of these high technology type classes that the kids are asking us for. We're able to provide more performing arts. Right now, we have an undersized room that we use for a band room that then magically becomes the choir room. That's it. What about strings? What about vocal ensemble? What about all these other things? What about performance? Skipping down a little bit, some of our science in biology, as an old science teacher, as an old biology teacher, science teacher myself, I'd love to have a greenhouse. That'd be awesome. And just think of all the things you could do with that in starting a garden and having students actually produce from a garden. Also, easier transition among grade bands. We're all on this together. And then finally, we talked a little bit about that with special education. Special education is here in an appropriate space. It's not a closet. It's not half a classroom. It's not a bathroom in what used to be a mop closet, that type of thing.
And a couple other things that, and I know if you come to South Vienna and Northridge, you definitely experiences some of the traffic flow. You know, we all have concerns about some of the traffic flow, and just the way that the buildings were designed when they were built, obviously may not have been built to accommodate as much traffic as we have right now. So trying to make sure that we have a setup that allows for kids to safely get to buses, safely get to cars picking them up, if they're walking home, safely to sidewalks, and just ways for us to handle the increased amount of traffic and things that we see in our parking lots. Paved parking lots would also be nice to be able to make sure that we have in all of our buildings, and it would help obviously with some safety walking in, out, and around the facilities. Also increasing safety by kind of going back to the thoughtful layout of really talking about what should our entryways will look like in terms of having the ability to, as we let people into the buildings, and having kind of a way for it to be a safe way to come in and exit buildings, and just how we move in and out of buildings and through buildings, being able to create that safe environment that we want to make sure that we have in this place.
And then finally, I touched on it a little bit in the last stage, but the whole idea of collaboration, the idea of supporting each other. Once again, pre-K-12, we can support elementary to middle school to high school. We can share staff, we can share students back and forth, we can support one another. Pre-K-8 and then a combined 9-12, we can continue to support each other in middle school, elementary, and then the two high schools are able to support each other and grow their programs as well. So either way, it's a win. either way, it's better than already the great ideas that we've got going right now. Any questions regarding middle school land?
I'd like to know if the school area is gaining more students or losing students. And if so, do you anticipate gaining or losing?
The question is what's the enrollment projection look like here in the district? We've been losing some students, so our enrollment has been dropping. I believe it was at a high of around 3,700 less than 10 years ago to today we're right around 3,200. The numbers that are in the handout is an even lower projection. We have already had to do for the OSFC a 10-year enrollment projection, so those numbers have been taken into account. So the square footages that you're seeing in that handout are accounted for of what is projected to be our enrollment 5 years from now.
Do you expect it to go up?
No, expect it to be just a little bit lower than it is right now, but not dramatically lower.
Why do you need all the space?
Because that's what the OSFC tells us is the program for how they calculate that. So that's part of using their program and getting that 40% matching funding. Good question. Good question. Any other middle school questions? All right, we're going to turn it over to our elementary principals, Mr. Blackburn, Mr. Schaefer, and Mrs. Jones.
Good evening. I'm Rob Schaefer, principal of Northridge Elementary. I'm going to go over some of the things that Mr. Justice just went over. I won't repeat what he said, but I'm going to talk about some of the concerns, some of the inadequacies that we see with our current facilities. Mr. Blackburn's going to talk to you about some safety issues, and Mrs. Jones is going to talk to you about programming. And Mr. Justice said heating and air from one room to the next, it can be 60 degrees to 87 degrees. Just fluctuates and really hard learning environment for the kids, not conducive. The other thing is during, obviously, the summertime, it can get extremely hot in our room. Sometimes I'll walk in, the kids will be laying down on the hard concrete or tile, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Well, we're just trying to get cool, Mr. Schaefer. It's so hot here, we can't learn. And we deal with that in August and September. Sometimes October. As warm as it's getting here now in January, it's kind of crazy. Air quality. I don't know how many people I talk to in our buildings, kids and staff members, parents who come in and talk about that when their kids attend school, that their asthma and they have breathing difficulty during the school year. And it only seems to be while they're in the building. True story. You can talk to many staff members at Northridge, and they will tell you the same thing. Even some parents with kids in our building about the air quality and the difficulty with breathing in the building. Gymnasium. Mr. Justice talked about this. When we go scheduling in the spring for the next school year, the gymnasium, the cafeteria also is another major area that we have to look at first before we can do any scheduling. And these are the gymnasiums that our middle school kids play in. And every time if you go to a basketball game, the visitors from those schools always walk in and they kind of shake their heads and like, this is where we're playing tonight? It's unfortunate because I like to see our kids be able to play on a regulation-sized floor. Electricity, Mr. Miller talked about this with outlets. There are only a couple outlets in rooms. You can't operate during those hot months, fans and certain things at the same time. You got to play that game of what items can we have turned on in the classroom so we can learn. Plumbing, Mr. Miller talked about that. The water pressure, that is no joke. When the cafeteria is operating and you're in the elementary bathrooms at Northridge, you can't wash your hands. There's no water pressure. It's crazy. And so, we're trying to teach the kids, obviously, to be healthy and make sure that they're washing their hands and those things. And it's very difficult when one faucet maybe will get a little dribble of water out, so they can do that. Restrooms, we have a lot of issues with restrooms, toilets backing up due to the drain or the pipes inside the buildings being so old and constantly kind of crumbling. Once or twice a year, the elementary boys' restroom at Northridge, it will back up all the urinals and the toilets, and then it connects to all the other restrooms, staff restroom, elementary girls' restroom, and we have issues. Comes up the drain outside, right outside the glass hallway there in Northridge. Overcrowding. We used to talk about this 10, 15 years ago. And we do have less students, but we are still overcrowded. I know at Northridge, I know at South Vienna, at Rolling Hills, we have kids in inappropriate places trying to learn. We have kids using dividers in the library with built walls that we've constructed that just aren't as good as classrooms. And I know it happens across the district. And it's unfortunate because if you're in those rooms, I know I was in observing Miss Engel a couple years ago in one of those rooms, and it was frustrating because it's a very difficult learning environment for our kids. And unfortunately, there's no other place to go. We use every single thing, like Mr. Justice said. Hallways, come here during the class change when elementary is going to lunch. The hallways are packed. And storage. We don't have storage for our teachers. There's a lot of supplies and manipulatives for elementary teachers, and they have no place to put those. We have no extra storage within the building to put those, even if we can't get them in the classroom. And even storage for kids and their coats and their book bags. That is in need. Handicap accessibility. I know we don't have, we have some exits at Northridge that have stairs that kids in wheelchairs cannot get down in case of an emergency. And that is very frustrating during drills and things. It's a safety concern. The acoustics, I know here at Rolling Hills with open classrooms and no doors. The sound, it's not conducive to learning. Cafeteria, the other thing with scheduling, besides the gymnasium, is our cafeteria. That's the first place we look before we start the schedule. So the gym and the cafeteria dictate what we do with our schedule. We start eating lunch at 10:15 at Northridge, and we end at 1:45. That is the cafeteria time. And parking lot, it's kind of a safety concern. I'm going to let Mr. Blackburn talk about that. Mr. Miller, I know he hit on that earlier too. So, Mr. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Just a few things with school safety in addition at Rolling Hills, and I know Northridge Elementary and South Vienna Elementary, we kind of have some of the same struggles that Mr. Miller and Mr. Justice had touched on. But really with our, as far as communication and safety, just having intercoms that work throughout the building in the event of an emergency, and then also a school-wide phone system. I know at Rolling Hills in my office, I don't get a cell phone signal. So in the event there would be some sort of incident, you just have those added seconds or minutes in order to get the word out. And then also just for teachers to be able to make a phone call home. A lot of times teachers will come down, they may show me an email, or there may be an email correspondence, and I say, hey, it'd probably be a good idea to give them a call. We only have a few phones in the building, so to be able to be able to have more personalized communication with parents, that would also be a plus. Traffic flow in and out of the buildings. We don't have, I don't think in any of the buildings, separate bus and student drop-offs. So that creates some issues as traffic is coming in and out of the buildings in the morning. Also, at Rolling Hills, I know that the addition was done to the building, but I'm not sure they took into consideration actually upgrading the lots. So we've added on in some of the buildings, but they haven't added on to the parking facilities. Also, another thing that we deal with too is I'm 46. I walked to school or rode my bike. Now all it takes is one, hey, there was a suspicious looking van in Northridge, and those parents, they may no longer want to have their child walk to school, which is totally understandable. So just, the atmosphere in which we live has changed, so more students, are getting dropped off in the morning. At Rolling Hills and South Vienna, if you've been in those buildings, you know a lot of our classrooms do not have doors, so those spaces are open. And also at Rolling Hills, just to have video surveillance in that building. I think all the other buildings have video surveillance, but to have that in the event of a crime or in the event of some sort of incident at the school, you know, that would help law enforcement. So those are just a few of the safety things, kind of specific to the elementary, but everything pretty much overlaps to the other buildings as well. So I will introduce my colleague, Mrs. Jones.
Thank you. Okay, you've heard some of this again already, but again, the classroom design, I know you guys have been in the rooms back there, and they're kind of a pie shape. It's kind of hard to set up that classroom a little bit shape of a pie. It's hard to put kids in groups and do some collaborative work. Science demonstrations, that's now come down to the elementary level. We're not just doing science labs anymore at the high school. We really don't have the capability to do some of the things we need to do. We've been listing some virtual options. We're looking at some really great curriculum. But like Mr. Justice shared and Mr. Miller, it'll be great to have some of those things right in the classroom, that we don't have to walk down the hall to get the water to carry it back down to set it up, those types of things. I will say, out of the fire code violations we did have in the building, we did get as code as we could, and we're doing the best that we can as possible, but there's only so much you can do. But we are okay to still open our doors. Cafeteria and gymnasium, again, it's shared space. And we love sharing, it's not about that, but it's just a lot of kids in one place, which also, you know, lends itself to space and proximity. Another thing is the pre-K-8 or pre-K-12. We have a lot of mentors that come down from the 8th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and they are truly helping us, I honestly believe, with things like reading pals and our mentoring. So it continues to open up those pathways. We have high school students who might want to know about child development and want to Park State. Well, you know, you want to come spend some time over in the elementary building. So that'll help you know real quickly if that's something you want to look at as a career path. The mentoring, things that we want kids to know and learn. Here we're focusing, you know, on those leadership skills. And we also have kids that in our gifted program, we can offer that up until about 5th grade in the district. But allowing kids who are showing with our data that we're going to go into 7th or 8th grade math, you know, we're kind of proud of it. I can't really send Mr. Justice 5 or 6 of my kids right now, possibly. So we've got to offer those extensions in our classrooms. So lots of opportunities to continue to network and work together and share resources. And so it's just a great thing about as we continue to do what's best for our kids.
Questions for elementary? No? Okay.
Now it's on.
All right, thank you. Question came up about transportation early on, and at the last presentation, we kind of tried to do transportation for all of the scenarios, focusing in a little bit more on this one. Our base cost for transportation on a day currently in our district is about $7,800, just a little over $7,800. Option 2, again, pre-K-12 South Vienna, pre-K-12 Northridge, we would save about $100,000 a year. Option 5, if you go back to the old slide, we were actually spending a little bit more money on the consolidated high school. We actually redrew where that circle would be of where the consolidated high school would be, because we originally had it initially right in the kind of geographic center. And I'll explain a little more when we talk about where possible facilities are. We moved it over by Rolling Hills because right now there is a piece of land for sale there, and that's the only one we can find right now. So I've got a slide later on talking about the location. But by moving that building over there, we actually save on transportation even with option 5, where we were spending more money before. The reason being, more students in that area, less that we would have to transport, and many less that we would have to transport much of a distance at all. Now, not saying that that's a pro for everybody, because there could definitely be a con. If you live over South Vienna way, it's definitely farther. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat anything. Every option has pros and cons, and it all depends on what your perspective is. So I truly do want to continue to remain neutral. I'm not trying to say that's where it should be. I'm just saying we tried to give you some numbers based on some locations. so that we can try and, again, share with you as accurately as we can what some of those possibilities might be. So that's the transportation. Yes?
At Northridge, there is no transportation for the elementary and all. Is that being counted into that? Because at either location, I'm there out on Redwood Road West. My son is not going to be able to walk over to KR.
The way this was figured was that basically we would be at a 1 mile no walk zone, or a walk zone. And that's currently, I believe, pretty much what it is in Northridge now. So that Northridge Elementary, it's about a mile around that encompasses that population. So we're fairly similar to that as far as what we based it on was our current transportation rules of that no walk zone. Okay? So we basically, around where we put those buildings is where we drew that circle, and then transportation would be provided to everyone outside of that circle.
So it had to increase.
Yes. I mean, it would increase, but again, you're looking at how far you have to transport and how long it takes each bus to do their run. And again, it was calculated out by every bus in the district, and what those, again, the routing software basically tells you how many routes you would need, how many buses, how long they would be on the road, and again, gives you those costs. So that's what we use to be able to calculate that. And again, it matches up pretty closely with what we're currently doing and saying here's kind of the difference of what that would look like. Okay? Good question. That's kind of transportation. Moving on. What other savings could potentially be there? We're looking at going from 5 buildings to either 2 or 3. So there's obviously a little bit less need. Instead of having 5 kitchens, at most we're going to have 3, maybe 2. So we won't need quite as many staff. But I can't give you an exact amount until we would say, okay, we know that the design for a building that has 1,000 students needs 2 lunch lines or 3 serving lines. Those are some things we still need some help with. I am absolutely not an expert in this. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, trying to get some help to be able to make sure that we're in the ballpark on anything we present to you. But to finalize that and be even closer, we need some help to do that. So as you can see, we look at reducing and trying to save some cost. And again, I put this basically both building configurations. We believe that there could be this amount of savings for our classified staff. Believe me, I estimated low, because I want to make sure that I'm not, throwing out a number that we can't meet. Okay? So could that number potentially be a little bit higher? Potentially. Will it be lower? I don't believe it will be lower. All right? Question?
Okay, back to transportation. Option 2. K-12 will stay fine. There will not be double run.
No, there would still need to be double route.
So it would still be same time now. Or not same time, but like basically a kindergarten or a sophomore will not be on the bus.
That would be correct. We would not be running it would not be a single routed system where everybody, K-12, would be on the same bus. So no, we would still be looking at doing double routing. Please don't ask me times yet, because that would all, absolutely have to be determined. But that absolutely would be part of the planning. And we would definitely be looking at ways to say, okay, again, if you're looking at double routing, potentially what you're really trying to say is you're going to take half your kids on the first run and half your kids on the second run. So where does that line fall to say, okay, your time slots are going to be pre-K 5 and then 6-12, or pre-K 4 and 5-12, because you typically have a lot of high school kids who will drive, so you may not potentially need as many buses. So again, all that would have to be studied and laid out, and what we would really do there is look at that help from other districts of what have they found as they build new buildings to try and do similar configurations. Great question. Great question. All right, yes?
With transportation, now I work for transportation, are they going to keep transportation where it's at because like they go to different campuses or whatever? You're going to get rid of everything, you're going to demolish that and everything. So where is the board office and where is transportation going to be? Are they going to stay where they're at?
And my best answer is, I don't know. Okay. First of all, I don't know if you saw on one of the slides, there was an LFI for board office. Okay? There are some see-through parts to the board office right now through block walls, which really aren't supposed to be see-through. So there's definitely some need there as well. Okay. So do we build a new board office, and where's that at? You know, where's transportation located? You know, do we break transportation in half and say half the buses are going to be stored on one side and half the buses are stored on the other? Because there's potentially savings there by not having to travel all the way back and forth. Well, we have two now. We have one main and one assistant. But again, you're asking questions that are a little bit above where I can get an answer for you. Because my bigger issue right now is how do we move forward with making sure we're taking care of our kids? All of those other questions are important, and they all need to be answered. But our most important question is, what's it look like for our kids and the future of our community? But all of those things have to be answered, and I'm not trying to shy away from them. I just can't give you an answer for all of those questions yet. Okay? Other questions? Administration. Again, reducing from 5 buildings to 2 or 3. There's definitely at least a savings of 1 to 2 administrators. Can't tell you who those would be, what it would look like for sure, because we haven't really settled in on any kind of configuration of what exactly the grade bands look like. Maybe I should address that now as well. A pre-K-12 is not just going to be one building with one office and 3 principals at each. It's going to be some separation. Obviously, we don't want those kindergartners traveling in the same hallways with seniors all the time. They may transition every once in a great while if they're going to a gym or something else. But overall, there's going to be some separation in that building. Is it a pre-K-3 and a 4, 5, 6? Keep banding it whatever way you want. Obviously, those decisions haven't been made either. But we can break it however we see as the most efficient and what's best for our kids. We still have to, again, determine what that configuration looks like and where those buildings are at and what that configuration master plan-wise looks like. Okay? I already mentioned possible locations. The only one so far that I'm aware of that has some land for sale is in the vicinity of Rolling Hills. It does have sewer and water. That's a plus. I'm not saying that's the right location, but you notice the next part down there says, if you know of a potential location that's for sale, please let me know where it could be for sale. That's better than that spot, or you think it's better than that spot, let me know. Because I can tell you, I do not want to be in a fight with a landowner over trying to get a piece of property for the school. I would much rather have somebody say, yeah, this makes sense, and willing to do that, and we can all agree that, yeah, that's a right spot. Yes?
How much land are you looking at?
Great question. For a consolidated high school, we need in the neighborhood of between 40 and 50 acres to be able to house all of the athletic facilities, parking, everything else. If you think about Kent Ridge High School, that property is just right at 40 acres. And we think we could, again, be able to do it on a property about that size. Now, if we could get 100 acres, obviously having more land could be nice, and potentially to do, more things, have a wooded land lab, or, other things that, potentially could be there. It'd be nice. They're not essential, but around 40 acres is what we believe it would take for a 9-12 complex for about 1,000 students. Okay. So the other properties, similar as well, because they're going to be around kind of that number as well. Okay? Yes? Can't answer that until we know exactly where it is. It obviously depends on the market. I don't have an exact number on it yet. Okay? I don't have an exact number. And honestly, we haven't really went out and said exactly, hey, we want to buy this piece of land. Because we know as soon as we do that, guess what happens to the price of that land? You can imagine. Yes?
Sir, I have a question about, I know the schools, we have probably overcrowding, obviously, on the south end side, I know overcrowding. But I was looking at the pre-K 12, and it shows that with that, on the options, we would be using like 23,000 square feet compared to what we have there in the field. Can you explain how?
Absolutely. Okay, the question is if you look at the current square footages in all of our facilities, compared to what the OSFC is saying we would get in either the 2 or the 3 building configuration, we lose some square footage. You do. But we also go from having 5 boiler rooms to 2 or 3. So you gain some size back in just what some of those facilities were used for. The other part is the building is designed from the beginning to be used in ways that allow you to market that square footage, if you will, for the right purposes. Exactly. So that thoughtful planning that was mentioned on one of the slides, some flexible spaces, okay? And I'm not saying open air classrooms, I'm saying some flexible spaces that allow you, again, to put some large rooms together, but then maybe have a wall that moves and still gives sound and privacy quality that you can separate into different spaces. One of the most exciting phases of this is once we get to the point where, hey, we're ready to start moving forward and planning, and we pass the bond issue, and we're ready, going out and seeing what other communities have done and what fits for what your needs are. That's a lot of fun. And hopefully we can get a large group to come and take those tours and see what makes sense for our community. And get our teachers involved in that planning. Because that's a very important piece of it. Yes, sir?
This is all fine and dandy, but I'd like to know the bottom line. What's this going to cost?
And I can't tell you that exactly, okay?
Has anybody figured out what this costs compared to what we got and how much it's going to cost taxpayers? Me.
Sure. At the last meeting, I shared a slide that had what it would cost approximately for a bond issue of different sizes. Basically, it's a little under $4 per $1 million of building. Now, 40% of the project of the educational space is paid for by the state. So if we're looking at a $100,000 home and say a $70 million bond issue, just pulling a number out of here, I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, one way or the other. Well, take that $70 million. It's about $286. Let me restate that. About $250 to $280 some dollars for a $100,000 home per year, and that's based on some variables of interest rate, because that plays in. We don't know what we would be borrowing at. Also, our bond rating in the district. Now, that's expensive compared to what we're currently paying, because you're not paying for that bond issue right now. I get it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not expensive. That's a part of, again, not trying to preach to you or anything else, but that's a part of being a community. What do you want for your community? Okay? Thanks for coming. Again, we don't need to debate that part of it. We're here to get information. All right? Yes, ma'am.
Can I say one thing? My kids are grown. They went to Northeast and all graduated from here. And I got graduated. People have to look at it this way. They supported you and your kids when you went to school here. The community did. You have to keep supporting these kids. It's our future. If you don't get them the better technology, this is what they're fighting for when they go to college. You have to support them coming in and getting a better deal and stuff with schooling. You have to support your kids. This is our future.
unique position in our community because we have obviously different viewpoints or different rural, suburban. But we're all one district. I said that at the last meeting, I'll continue to say that. And we don't get a choice to vote on a plan for one side of the district and another plan for the other side of the district on two separate levies. It's one levy. What we're trying to do right now is give you as much information as we possibly can and answer your questions and be able to share with you options. All right, yes, ma'am.
Doctor, I know there was option 2 and option 5, maybe was narrowed down to. And option 5 had the consolidated high school, but option 2, maybe not?
Yeah, option 2 is the two pre-K-12 buildings, one on one side of the district, one on the other.
And in option 2, would we stay on the properties that we currently have?
In option 2, what we've potentially been talking about site-wise is probably on the Kenton Ridge site, okay, or somewhere in Northridge. If we do it on the Kenton Ridge site, obviously it makes sense to use land we already own. We don't have to purchase that land again, okay? In South Vienna, we could use the site, but we would probably need a little bit more land to be able to bring all of the facilities here, okay? Or an adjacent piece of land possibly that we could put the athletic facilities on, or some combination thereof, okay? Again, you name it, there's a lot of different options to try and go with that.
I have one follow-up question.
Absolutely. No, you won't, but that's okay. I like that. I want the questions.
Like if you did have to buy new property, you know, and not use Northridge or something, is that something we're responsible to sell, and do we get the profit of that if we sell it? We meaning
Yes, we have the potential to do that. Obviously, you can keep land if you again, think that somewhere down the road there might be a need to say, well, we need that land because potentially it could become something else that the district needs. The good news is that if we have a facility that needs to come down because it's just not in good shape or we can't sell it as it is, the OSFC will fund 40% of that demolition as well. And then you have the potential to sell that land to a developer or for some other purpose and get some of that. Now, we're not going to be able to sell the land to pay for all of the facilities we need to build, okay? But there's the potential to make some of that back. Great question, okay? Yes, sir.
So I have a question about the athletic facilities. Looking at page 12, both in Northridge and South Carolina, however you programs, middle school programs, will we lose, for instance, South Carolina, we have 3 fields here in the school, will we lose those fields? Will we lose the football field? Or will we gain facilities? Will we have athletic facilities to support all 8 groups?
Great question. Will we have adequate athletic facilities to support all of our students in the community, K-12? So in other words, school sports start grade 7. So what do they do in the Pee Wee program? Okay. Well, I'd argue right now we can support football pretty well. Okay. But we really can't support basketball because there are a lot of requests to use our gyms, even as small as they are. We just don't have time to bring in youth programs because we're using the gyms all the time now for our own program. Now, can we build extra gyms, or is there a potential to say that a building that we're not using, that gym could be repurposed and could be something that becomes a community center? Those are all decisions, again, that the community has to make. Okay? Potentially, if we put turf fields in, Pee-wees could play on Sunday on turf. That happens in other places. Where would the practice facility? I can't answer all of those questions until we know exactly where we would put it and how much land we would have and what would be the availability for practice. So, but that, again, it's all part of this. I'd love to be able to tell you I have every answer. I don't. But I'm not going to sit here and try and answer and tell you something I can't either. Okay, that doesn't make sense either. Yes, ma'am.
In the back, she's waited forever, this lady in the back next to you.
Yes,
Sorry, Brittany.
I was one of those teachers. You got to sit up front. You want to be recognized, you got to come on up front. Go ahead.
Are you open to having a committee for people who want to volunteer their time to educate the community about the reason behind this? I mean, don't get me wrong, I respect and appreciate the time everyone's taking on these slides, but I also understand that we have aggravated taxpayers that are just going to continue to vote these things down, which does not help our students. So I'm all about forming especially us parents and staff, whatever, a committee that proactively, before it goes back on, really hits it hard with the community in discussing not just what these people have already been hearing, but more details of why this is so important and how education has changed now versus when I was in school and big differences. I mean, I have tons of ideas, but I'm just saying, I think it would be very important to have a committee that's focused on educating the community.
Absolutely. Actually, I believe that committee kind of already exists, okay? But you're not going to like the name of it, because it's the levy committee. Because that's exactly what they do. They try and help educate for why we need what's going on the ballot. And that committee's already there now. I understand that may not be what you're looking for, but that committee does already exist, and that's a part of what they do now. That being said, I'm willing to always get people together and say, how do we go out and reach those groups? I'm just not sure that we can. You tell me how we can get a group of no voters in a room and change their mind with information. Or even, how do we get them assembled to be able to share that message? I'd love to be able to do it and be able to try and get that information out.
Yeah, well, I think the point is not, my point was, what I've seen is these kind of things and not more of a focus on how, what it takes to get into college, how to prepare for college now. Just everything in general is different than what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That's the things that people don't have their mind open to, more so than if we tell them about air conditioning, if we keep pursuing about air quality, air conditioning, the classrooms being too strong, that's not working. It's not, because we keep failing on these legs. And so my idea was focusing more on how it's changed, and our students need to be better prepared. Because what we've done is just fail at life. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And again, happy to sit down and meet with you and figure out how do we put something like that together. I'm more than willing to try to meet with anyone about ideas of how we make this work, okay? And how we try and get that, ultimately trying to build a grassroots movement. That's what I think we're trying to somewhat establish here, getting that information. And I think you probably heard me say it at every meeting. Go out and tell 10 of your friends and neighbors about what we talked about. Please get on the website. And I'm not saying that's going to change their mind, but again, all we can do is try to keep sharing the information. Maybe there are other ways to do that that will resonate. And we haven't hit on all of them, but we're going to keep trying. So absolutely. So give me a call, drop me an email, let's set up a time. I'm happy to try to put a group together like that, share more information. Yes, sir.
We have a feel for how many high school kids in the district move across school different boundaries because they're able to get
down and say, we know how many students go to other districts, okay? We can't say for sure we know exactly why they went to a different school, okay? Now, we know that we have a number of students who went to the STEM school. Well, we have a pretty good idea why they went to the STEM school because of the opportunity that's there. But for example, we've got a number of students who are in the corner of the district over here, closest to Mechanicsburg. Well, my guess is they went to Mechanicsburg because they're a lot closer to Mechanicsburg than they are here. So we can surmise on some of those, but I can't tell you that I have absolute data that tells me why they went where they're attending. We're seeing a few more students leave every year than what we're getting in. We still attract more people here in open enrollment than what we're seeing go out. So it still seems to be a preferable place to be. Okay? Yes, sir.
Most of this, for me, is business. And to me, when you look at the community as a whole, I look at a lot of the facility and I compare this to the Upper Valley Mall. And you have people coming in, new tenants, which would be people we have coming into the schools. And the reason they don't open enroll here, or they don't move into the area, is because this is the school system. This is what you have. You want your kids in 8th grade playing on this basketball court? Absolutely not. Not that they can go to Mechanicsburg and play on a nice new court in a new facility with updated security, all the things that are going on. And that's what's happening at our mall, is our mall is dying because we're the Sears of that mall. It's dying.
I can see somebody's writing a testimonial for me. But you know, I'm trying to be very careful of not trying to push a plan other than the fact that we are trying to push that we need new facilities. Okay? So, that being said, there are definitely a lot of positives that come with that. Good school systems are reflected in higher property value. That's a fact. Okay? That may not resonate with everyone because, but it also means higher taxes, and I get that. So, you know, but if I could, I'm going to get to your questions, I promise. Let me finish, okay? Because we have some people that do need to leave, okay? Please do what you need to do. But before you go, you were given a sticker tonight if you're a registered voter in the district, okay? On your way out, and again, this is just another reference check for the people that are in this room, okay? Because I have no idea how representative the sample is in here of our district, which is why we're going to do a survey. Okay, a scientific survey. But on your way out, on either side, take your sticker, put it on Plan 2 or Plan 5. Okay? Or, if you don't like either one of them, put it in your pocket. But if you do need to go, I want to make sure that you do know, please put your stickers on. That helps us continue to gather data. All right? In the back, there are the two plans. What you see on the side are what was created at the last meeting, where we did pros and cons and we broke into groups for each of the plans. Believe me, we are trying to be as transparent as possible. We do not want to hide anything from anyone. And if you haven't gotten a flavor from this meeting, there is no plan that has been decided upon. So, if you need to go, again, please put the sticker up. Let me finish and I'll be glad to keep answering questions. Okay? We need some help. Because I'm not an expert in all of the OSFC guidelines. Or in looking at all of the pre-bond work that might possibly be needed to help us make even a better decision. So we put an RFQ out for architect to do some of that work and help us with that. And we're going to be starting in that interview process here shortly to try and help us get more information to be able to share. All right? We're also looking to conduct a scientific survey. We just entered into a contract with a researcher, Paul Fallon. There, at one point in time here in the next few weeks, will be a card going out or information going out saying, please answer your phone if you get a call from an unknown number, because we are trying to conduct a survey of over 300 registered voters, a scientific stratified population survey. by precinct, age, all the demographics, so we can see it's relatable to information, trying to get answers like, which plan do you like the best? Do you want this LFI or that LFI? What are you willing to pay? You know, the survey hasn't been completely put together, hasn't started yet. We're still gathering data to find out all the questions we need to answer. So it may take 10 or 15, 20 minutes even in that survey. But we need that data to be able to help the board be informed on what's the best way to move forward. And I promise you, if that survey comes back and says, don't go on the ballot because you don't have a chance to pass an issue, we're not going on the ballot, because that makes no sense to waste taxpayer money going on the ballot for something that doesn't really have a chance to pass. We'll need to come back and do more education or figure out if there's another plan. But I'm hoping that survey gives us data that allows us to make a decision to move forward in our community and what's best for the community. All right? We have another community meeting at Kenton Ridge High School on the 12th of April to be able to share results of that survey, to continue the dialogue, and hopefully, again, continue to move forward with some decisions. So mark your calendar. If you gave us your email, I appreciate it. If you already had it, raise your hand if you got an email from me about this meeting tonight. Great. Okay? Raise your hand if you got a one call. Great. Those of you who didn't raise your hand either time, thank you for being here, because somebody had to tell you, and you had to be interested enough to want to keep coming. That's important. Please continue to tell other people. That's important. All right? So, April 12th, 6 to 8 o'clock. Okay? If you haven't provided your email, please do. That's helpful for us to get information with you, whether it's sharing handouts or even just locations of meetings. All right, what did we miss? So we're going to allow more questions, but what else would you like to know? If you're not comfortable speaking out in a group like this, email me, call me. All right? Any of our principals, any of our other administrators, board members, we want to make sure we're getting your questions answered and allowing you to have input into this process. All right? And again, the plan for the sticker, I've already shared. Please, if you want to put a sticker on Plan 2 or Plan 5, another data check for us. All right, continuing questions. Yes, ma'am.
Let's get on a positive note. Say our enrollment increases. We have something in place for that.
Well, if our enrollment increases dramatically before we get to a building process, we can go back and petition the OSFC to be able to try and add square footage to the project. But we've got to be able to show we've got more students coming. It's not, well, we think we're going to have more students. They won't. The OSFC's been burned. How many of you have seen buildings shut down because they didn't have enough kids to fill them? Well, those are our tax dollars. And we don't want to do that. We want to go to, but again, as those buildings are laid out, they're also laid out with the potential for, if you need to do an addition, here's where it could be. Okay? That is thought of ahead of time in the process. All right? Yes, sir.
You said a couple things here tonight that I'm curious about.
Only a couple? I'm not doing a very good job.
Well, first of all, I absolutely believe in going no question there. I have a real problem spending $8 to $10 million building new athletic facilities. The facilities that are in place now are in bad shape and have been bought and paid for by the volunteers and the Boosters Club at both high schools. The school district has no money in it that I'm aware of. It's been done by selling hot dogs, donations, and whatever else.
A lot of manure was shoveled, if I'm understanding correctly.
A $350,000 building was built at Northeastern High School, shoveled, you know what, at the state fair. At Kenton Ridge, those folks over there must share dumps constantly to build that facility. Now you're sitting here, tonight, you're presenting that you want to go buy new dirt to go build a school on. And we have all this dirt at Northeastern, and there's cornfields that completely surround the Northeastern property. I can't believe that we reached out to those folks that own those cornfields, can't find enough dirt to put a high school, a middle school, K through 12 on that property and keep the facilities that are there. Build it there. Kenton Ridge is the same way. Rick, is there not cornfields around Kenton Ridge?
Not sure they're all for sale, but that, yes.
You don't know if they're for sale until you go ask. And the way you get this to be for sale is you would appeal to that person that owns that on their sense of community and do they care about the kids. And if we can save $10 million of taxpayer money, which I don't believe we ought to be spending $10 million to build football fields and bleachers and stuff like that. We've never done it in the past, like we're doing now. Why we don't go reach out to these people? You said 40 acres to do what you want to do. All right.
If the community wants to do all the facilities, again, please understand.
I don't think you have any choice but to do new facilities.
No. When I say all new facilities, I mean the whole package. Okay, not only the educational, but also those other athletic facilities that would not be funded by the OSMC. Okay, and again, please understand that was put out as an option. It wasn't said that it absolutely had to be that way. Okay, so one of the things
you can't go build a high school someplace else and leave the, you'll be just exactly like the city's got, that debacle they've got, when they want to go play a football field and all the kids got to leave what I still call North High School and go to the field on the south end of town.
You're right.
That's a disaster.
But that has something to do with where there's so much more money in Division One.
What now?
Like, look at London instead of, look how much money they bring in, having to do football fields. If they bring in a boatload of money, it doesn't pay that long.
Understand one of the issues that I have is as I'm working and trying to put something out there, without, again, and this is part of what we're going to try and test somewhat in the surveys as far as locations go. Okay? If I just say we're going to build it somewhere, what's the first question everybody asks? Where? So then we say somewhere, and then you can always take shots and say, put it somewhere else or put it. I agree with you. I'm not trying to debate with you. There's definitely exactly, and I'm just saying. I'm not saying I'm disagreeing or agreeing. I'm trying to go, and that's part of what we need to hear, and part of what we look at as we try and survey and continue to get feedback of whether that makes sense or it doesn't make sense. Okay? Like I said, I don't have all the answers, and hopefully I hit with curiosity.
My grandson around, he's playing basketball at Fairfax. And so I'm following him around. We were at Riverside last weekend, playing the court.
You're seeing mostly new facilities, aren't you?
Fairfax has got a new place. Triad's got a new place. Every place we're going, they got nice new buildings. We should have that for our kids. We should do that. There's no question about it. But I have a real problem with going out and spending several $1 million on dirt when we already own dirt.
I understand. I understand. And again, that's a great perspective to bring. Yeah. But I think for your perspective, there might be somebody else who would say, we like the idea of having a new stadium. I'm not, again, I can't tell you what's going to actually be supported by the community.
Win a couple state championships and you pay for your state.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Say again. The build time. Okay. From the time you pass your bond issue, it's about a year of planning. And then about 2 years to build. Maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, depending on weather, how many other projects are going on in the area. I mean, it's not a set, but from the time you pass your bond issue, It's approximately 3 years total. You can sometimes squeeze down the planning process a little bit, but it's definitely within probably the 2 to 3 year range. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
So what happens after that? You go for an operating levy? I've seen it before in Hilliard. I know I've got people here from Hilliard, and that's what always happens. So I think as a community, we go for the bond, we know we need new schools. How much is it going to cost in 3 more years?
It's a great question. And again, my answer to you is,
We don't know.
no, I'm not going to say that. My answer to you is, when it comes to operating money, because of the way our state funding system currently works, we're going to be back asking for a levy of some type most likely. Because there's not a great deal of choice. When your costs go up, you know, and believe me, we try and operate as frugally as we possibly can.
Well, I think that's what we need to do is get that information out. Because everybody knows, just be honest.
Well, and the other part of that is, in the options that we've provided, we tried to share that some have different economics than others. And I'm not trying to go one way. I mean, obviously, there's a savings in transportation if we do the 2 pre-K 12 over the other. If we do a consolidated high school, there's a little bit more savings in staff. So every plan has pros and cons. Okay? There's no doubt that new facilities allow us to do much more educationally in a much higher quality facility at a cheaper cost. Okay? There's no doubt that we can air condition a new high school building cheaper than what air conditioning Kenton Ridge and Northeastern High School is currently. These systems are too much more inefficient from what was put in, obviously, many years ago. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I want to understand about the site. And I don't know where the center of the district is. Where is it?
The center of the district, I believe, is in Buck Creek Lake. When I interviewed a little over a year ago, I talked about a floating high school, but I don't think that's going to fly. So the geographic center is probably somewhere around the Buck Creek area in terms of geographics. In terms of population and school students, it's much closer to Rolling Hill School.
Okay, I see that if they would go for the one high school consolidation. I see that as a detriment to the northeastern facility because they're going to have to go a lot farther. And I understand it's saving transportation, it's whatever. But I don't like the idea.
And I understand exactly where you're coming from, okay? Your metric is based on geographics. If your metric is possibly based on opportunities and educational programming, you may see that differently. And I'm not telling you what to base your metric on. Everybody is absolutely entitled to their own opinion, okay? And what I said from the outset, no matter what happens, and what plan is seen as the one that the community hopefully would support, we're going to need some people to give up their, I don't want to say hopes and dreams, but their idea of where it should be to be able to make it happen. That's part of community as well. Whichever plan is, that's part of community. Being able to understand, because we need new facilities for our kids, something has to give. Yes? You said you weren't going to.
Yeah, but I was talking about on thing, and I'm wondering if you know about options. We should have a high school here and a high school at the other locations in Round and Ridge. Do you realize options you have that? Yeah, I think because in this presentation, I sort of didn't hear option 2. I heard more option 5.
Well, and please understand, you probably heard more information about option 5 because option 5 is the new option, if you will. The 2 pre-K-12s is not that much dissimilar than what we currently have. I mean, literally, we have kind of a northeastern side with Northeastern High School in South Vienna. And we have a KR side with Rolling Hills, Northridge, and Ken Ridge.
But if I look at that picture, there's 2
No. The option 2, just to be clear, option 2 would be a pre-K-12 on this side, in this area right here, South Vienna, okay? And then a pre-K-12 on the Northridge side, whether that's on the Kenton Ridge property, okay? And back to the, can we go back to the slide? That had the square footages. Back up, right there. The 2 pre-K-12 buildings. It says Kenton Ridge side. Again, for mind's eye sake, picture that on the Kenton Ridge High School complex. Based on our current enrollment on that side of the district, it would be about 248,000 square feet. A facility here on the northeastern side would be about 173,000 square feet. They would both have kids pre-K through senior, based on geographics. Option 5 has 1 consolidated high school. 166,000 square feet. Whether that's it, well, that's on a piece of land, and figuring out where that is. And then a pre-K-8 in Kenton Ridge area or Northridge, and a pre-K-8 on this side in the South End area. Okay? Yes, sir.
We talked about community, but it's more than just the voters out there. It's also the businesses, it's the governments, all that. Have we gotten any feedback or any support from the village, from the city, supporting one option or the other?
I haven't really. Board members, close your ears. They're politicians. They're not going to tell me one plan over another. Now, I think there might be an entity that definitely wants to see a school in that community. Well, they probably all would like to see a school in that community. They've been invited. And we had trustees at the last meeting. I'm not sure we have any trustees on this meeting.
The mayor comes up and says, be careful.
The mayor, okay. But again, it's hard sometimes to get that commitment. But again, we've definitely tried to inform, and we've definitely asked for those commitments. Yes.
I want to make a comment. I don't care which option. I want to vote for the option that I know the majority of the voters will vote yes for. When are we going to decide which one's most likely to get? I mean, I have a personal opinion, but it doesn't matter if the voters know.
I like this lady.
It's easy for me to say my kids are graduating.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. That scientific survey that we're going to have coming up here in the next 4 to 6 weeks is going to be critical in trying to give us more information. And the data points that we, again, are already trying to gather. So I'm hoping that at our next meeting on April 12th, information can be presented to the board that gives us a clear-cut choice of which direction to go. Worst case scenario, in the survey that we do, it comes back 50-50 to do option 5. Is that a possibility? Absolutely.
Are you going to ask me in the survey which one do I personally prefer? Or are you going to ask me which one will lead to a yes vote? They're 2 different questions.
You're going to very likely be asked both of those questions. Okay?
Only the second question.
Right. But we can get information from the survey, even from quote unquote a no vote, because it will tell us bits and pieces. That's part of how we looked at data research. How do they take all of that data and all of those questions that they ask and combine it and help give us recommendations? You will be able to see that data. It will be published. Okay? It'll go to the board first, and then we're going to make sure it gets out there and published so that, again, you can see we're going to be transparent. I promise that to you. Okay? And we're doing it as expeditiously as we can. It takes time. And we started not quite a year ago in getting input and trying to gather. We've definitely picked up some momentum with our meeting in November, where we had, again, approximately 200, 250 people. We've got over, I think, 100 tonight. Keep spreading the word. All right? Okay. I'm still happy to answer questions for another 10 minutes, but I also know that some, maybe or if you talk too much. It's okay. As you go, please remember this. We need your input. We need you to keep sharing. Place a sticker. Don't place a sticker, but again, please keep sharing with us and dialoguing with us. All right? Last couple of questions. I'd be happy to answer. Feel free to take off as well. Yes, sir. I don't want to say directed, but it was kind of, the location as I started talking was, it would really be good if we had a building in South Vienna. Okay? Now, that, I think the survey will hopefully help tell us that it would be in another location or where's option A, that we're going to try and, flush some of that out as we do the survey. The same would be true with the question about athletics. If people don't want new facilities for athletics, well, can we continue to play at the old? Well, sure we can. Okay? And I didn't hear the last part of it. Yeah, the sewer systems, absolutely. Again, actually we don't have a sewer system at Northeastern High School. It's basically an aeration leach bed type system. So, good point though. Yes, ma'am. Sure. I don't know that we specifically talked to either of those groups about actually trying to say, would you be willing to put your name on a stadium and fund it? We've actually been more probably at odds with Navistar over property tax. Again, not saying they're not a good partner for us, but just trying to work on some of that. I mean, again, believe me, I'll ask. I mean, I've been told no by better groups, and I can tell you. So, all right. I hear the mayor's willing to put her name on the stadium.
John, to your left of there, she's been waiting.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. And again, we asked the company that we're looking into doing this, they feel like they have a pretty good method of being able to either get an answer or ask them to call back so that they know it's a school-related facility issue and that more people are sometimes likely to make that call back knowing it's about the school. It's a great question, and I'm going to go back to the fact that the company that we're looking at doing this is a national company. He does it all over the United States. And his results and what he, again, has been able to predict by doing these surveys is a very, very high rate of success. So, I don't want to tell you absolutely no, but I know he is absolutely sold on using the phone survey method, and he has had great success in being able to predict from that. So if he gets turned down by a caller and they don't answer, they go to the next person that's in that same demographic to be able to, again, get that pool of survey respondents that they need to be statistically valid. So he assures me that we will get a statistically valid survey within a 5% margin of error, which is pretty good result. Yes, sir. The enrollment projections do have the open enrollment numbers that we have and the numbers that have been there on a stable basis. So yes, that is in the projection. What do we get for an open enrollment student? Right at $6,000 a year. Okay? So it's, you know, if you have space, it kind of makes some sense to say you're willing to take that on.
How much does it cost to teach that student for a year? So you get $6,000. How much does it cost per student for the year?
You know, you're now asking me to try to quantify what it costs per student in every one of the districts, and I don't know that I can do that. I don't know that any district can. Being able to say, I think we can tell you what our cost per student is, you know, at a rate of what, you know, our budget is. So we can take our number of students and say, this is how much we spent last year, and this is, I don't have that number off the top of my head, okay? Give me a call, give me an email, I can get that number for you. We can definitely take our number of students and divide it by our budget. We can do that. So, other questions? I definitely want to, again, thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time here. Feel free to ask more questions, send me emails, whatever it takes, so that we can keep spreading the word, keep the momentum going. Thank you all very much for being here. Appreciate it.